Alrighty, episode 249. And I have a very special guest with me today. His name is Kevin Downey Jr. He's the host of the Kevin Downey Jr. Show. He writes for PJ Media. His show, by the way, is at LI News Radio at 11 a.m. Monday to Friday. Really good show. He's a
10 to
great
11,
writer.
sir. 10 to 11.
10 to 11. Wow, I've really been gone that long. That's crazy. 10 to 11. Thank you, sir. And he's
Thank
also a
you.
comedian. So, Kevin,
Yeah.
welcome to the show, man. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks, buddy. My
And
pleasure. The pleasure and privilege is mine.
Hey, listen, we got a really, stacked topic today. So one of the main things I wanted to focus on is, one of our conversations that we always have in the studio and why you left the liberal thought process, why you abandoned liberal politics. So I kind of wanted to explore that. I know you told me a little bit about the story when we were working together, but for our listeners, I think it's a very fascinating story and it's pretty pertinent to today's politics.
You know, I excuse me, my views didn't really change all that much. I
Hmm.
became a little more gun friendly. I was always kind of gun friendly, but I guess I pretended I wasn't. I was living in Manhattan, and of course, you know how the drill is there. It's almost like a cult. And if you and actually, I actually wrote an article at PJ Media about how it's so much like a cult. You know, with the lionizing, like if you're with us, you're great. Demonizing, if you're with them, you're horrible. Uh, and you know, I just got to a point where they were saying so many things I found unbelievable that I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. This is insane. And that's before things got really crazy. That's before men could give birth and all that garbage.
So,
So yeah, I just no, yeah, I just hated. I hate to be told what to think, and I was just done being told what to think.
and it's kind of crazy that that makes you a conservative in the eyes of like the country,
I
even though
know.
your ideas didn't change.
Exactly. Someone said, "Did you see Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth?" I said, "Yeah, I think it's a lot of crap. I'm sure some stuff is true and some of it's crap." And the guy at my office asked me, he goes, "Oh, so when did you become a Nazi redneck?" I immediately became
What?
a Nazi redneck because I questioned some of Al Gore's uh, BS, and then there's a lot of BS in there.
That's insane to me because like, and I honestly I feel the same way from like my experiences in in organizing and such. Like I was called a Nazi, I was called a xenophobe, a homophobe, and all these other things because I
Oh
simply
yeah,
question people's, notions of what is the way forward for racial justice or how do we achieve a better society. And my answer was always class based. Being a Marxist, it's like, I was more on the whole um the workers need to unite together. We should be the ones running the country because the billionaires don't know what they're doing. They're only catering to a society for them. They're poisoning the media, such on and so forth. But to the people that I was talking to about it, they saw that as racist because I didn't put race or gender at the center of all the problems that they were encountering. So that made me a racist by just not
of course.
thinking that that was the case. Not, and I never said that it was never important, not important to talk about these things, but because I had a different way of thinking, I was the enemy. So I sympathize with you in that, and it's kind of sad to know that like it really hasn't changed that much, whether it be in 2011, 2014, or today. Outsiders are seen as conservatives because we just don't fit in with the liberal narrative. Even though me and you both agree on abortion, gay people, and guns, you know, if you're not against guns and you're not, you know, militantly for like if you don't think, babies should be able to have their penises cut off, made women, you're a
Yeah.
bad person. I mean, it's just it's Looneyville. And that's why, I
Well,
kind of left. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just to say, well, that's where it becomes about control. You will accept what we say. You will agree, or you will be on the outs. Now, I firmly believe that the whole political correctness movement, the woke thing, I think it's been hijacked by the Chinese. I think there's a new world order coming, and they want us to obey. And it's two things: everything's about racism or bigotry. Like if you don't believe a man can give birth, you're a bigot, and we get to you don't get to buy meat next week. And they're using climate change as another means to control the masses. They control the masses with climate change. We've decided this is all bad for the planet, so you can't have a gas car anymore. And you tweeted that a man can't give birth, so you can buy meat for the next month. I think both are being hijacked to be used to control the world.
It's actually interesting because in England, you can get arrested for hate speech on the internet. So if you disagree with,
Yes,
transgenderism, you could actually go to jail, um,
yes,
which I find
that's
crazy.
true. Hate speech is just having a different opinion now.
It is, and it's very
They have these,
dangerous because actual hate speech. I mean,
yes,
there was a dude, I swear to God, he was in my gym the other day, and he had SS lightning bolts tattooed on his neck. And he was just walking around freely. No one really cared. But if I said, you know, yo, I kind of think I think it's kind of whack that, kids are given the option to mutilate themselves. That's the biggest problem in the world. The guy with the SS lightning bolts feels so empowered to be in public that he can tattoo Nazi shit on his neck. I mean, if I joke around with my boys and we call each other faggots, that's the biggest problem in the world. But this guy would actively kill Jewish people and black people and gay people but he's not the biggest problem right now. Me being a white man is the biggest problem. And
well,
I
yeah, they can't. They still want to control you.
yeah, it's all control based. And to your point with the Chinese, I thought that was interesting because I see it as I think they're funding both sides of this. I don't think they're funding just one side. I don't think they're funding the leftists because they made it a crime to, I believe, have pride parades or display the pride flag in China. And they're very anti woke. They're a very anti woke society. I don't think they're communist. I definitely think they're fascistic, but they are trying to challenge the hegemony of the United States of America. And if they're in charge, it's going to be very dangerous for us because we're going to be relegated to the status of Europe or Asia, where we're going to be a subjugated nation, and
Oh yeah,
that's very dangerous. And it's not a people really need to understand that. If you want to, some people are like, we want a multipolar world. Okay, well that means there's a risk of world war and nuclear bombs and such. So you want a multipolar world, that's fine. But the thing is, a multipolar world ends up becoming a unipolar world in the end. Someone is going to win the fight of the superpowers. And every
yeah.
100 years, it's been shown cyclically within the last 400 years that empires rise for 100 years and they fall. They rise and they fall. In the 20th century, England fell, America rose. Is that trend going to happen again? And it's up to us to make sure that that trend stays to where America is still on top because we're going to be in a very dangerous spot and an impoverished spot. Because Europe, if you look at Europe, they only have a military. They only have these social programs because the United States is funding it. If they had to be on their own for their own military and their own defense and all this stuff, they wouldn't have all these cool social programs. They wouldn't be in advanced countries. They'd be struggling. They'd be in a depression if it wasn't for us.
Oh yeah, and that's a great point because look at Ukraine. What are we up to? Like 100 billion, 200 billion dollars, like
Oh God, yes,
something like
something
that.
like that.
And if you look, and believe me, you got to look. I think we both know you're not going to see this on ABC. If you you can probably see it better on Twitter. Just the views of these videos of Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, L.A. with these
Mm.
tent cities of people, pulling down their pants and dropping a crab cake on the sidewalk. And what kills you? Those same people who allow that, they want to talk to me about clean air and clean water for the climate. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, they're gutting these cities, just gutting them, and which I find. Well, I don't find. I used to find it like shocking. Like, how are they doing that? And it always came down to well, this you can't. We got to stop arresting people. Racism. Well, no. You don't stop arresting people to make up for past racism. What you do is you elevate a class of people to where they're not doing that. But that's not how we're doing it here. And so our cities are being gutted when all this money is going to Ukraine to fight another forever war. Just imagine what $100 billion could do to fight homelessness and drug addiction and all over the West Coast. But it's not even in their top 10 things list of things to do.
Yeah, they want to keep the empire going. And this is one of the critiques too, and this is why a lot of people don't care if there's another war with, against the United States, because we're willing to send money for bombs, but not for schools. And you said it
Hmm.
perfectly. And it's so funny because that's a liberal or a socialist point that you made, and yet you're seen as a conservative and you're typecasted as that. And that's a very dangerous game we're playing where now the people that are actually like that's one of the reasons I'm not involved in politics anymore is because, you're typecasted when you don't follow the line. They care more about an ideology and politics. And it's sad because it's seeped into the community organizations. It's seeped into these, groups like the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the Communist Party, your local Greenpeace group. It's seeped into every single, not just the top tier, not just the Democratic Party apparatus, but all these little, niche groups. It's infected.
I think,
S-
yeah, I think many, if not all, have been hijacked.
Oh yeah, a
I
hundred
mean,
percent.
because like look at BLM. Two of the three women who started it, they said we are trained Marxists, and people say, well, BLM, they want to help black people. Then why do they burn black neighborhoods? That is not what they're doing. And when I say Marxist, I don't mean I mean like cultural Marxists. I don't mean you.
Mm, you're
There's
very right.
I think yeah. So like if they cared about black people, they wouldn't be burning black neighborhoods. If
Yeah.
if the feminist groups cared about women, they wouldn't be okay with the chick with the dingle winning all the trophies over at the swim meet. They'd be like, no, no, that's a man. But no, they've been hijacked and they're told what to do, and they get money from the people that give them money. All right, well, we got money. We're not going to say anything about the chick with the dick who's winning all the trophies. We're going to let that go. Oh, but Trump's here. Get those pink pussy hats. Let's march. Let's march.
Well, and
I think
this is what's crazy. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say I think they've all been hijacked by these people who they just want control. It's all about control. And look at China. They locked people in their buildings. They welded them in
Mm.
when the COVID got bad. Like you do that here, you're going to get shot. One of the reasons we have a Second Amendment. We're going to weld you in. Oh, okay. Well, oh, no, you're not. So yeah, I think all of these things. I think the LGBT community. I think completely hijacked by and I'll say this. I think the gay push for gay marriage was very libertarian in nature. But
Yes,
what's going on with the trans crowd? That's authoritarian. You
because
will say that that man is a woman, or you will be punished. You will be fired. That's hate speech. How dare you?
that's because they know they can't get someone to accept it without force. But what I
Yeah.
noticed is, and this is true, the Communist Party actually used to, and I don't agree with this, but they used to be anti-LGBTQ. It actually in the 30s, well, in the 20s it was decriminalized in the Soviet Union. In the 30s it was criminalized again because Stalin believed that gays were fascists because they embodied bourgeois decadence. So if you
Mm-hmm.
were a gay in any communist party around the world, you were removed from the party. You were not allowed to be a party member anymore. And
Right.
they were militantly against homosexuality. They changed that in the 60s and the 70s because they noticed, especially in America, they noticed their numbers were dwindling and they had to get people in. They had to cater to the youth. So they changed their party policy to allow homosexuals into the Communist Party. And they only did it not out of they genuinely believed it, but out of they needed to keep money coming into the party because you have to pay for membership. The Communist Party has millions of dollars in hard assets. So, you
Right.
know, they're doing it not because they believe in it, but because they need to have it. They need to have that
Right.
membership and they need it for political survivability. So they don't actually believe in this shit at all. And that's the craziest part is that they're alienating huge sections of people because they're a bunch of phonies. And that's
Yeah.
devastating. That's devastating to the left. And it drives people like me and you away because we're regular working people. And instead, what you have in the left are all these like weirdos with like the colored hair and like they're obese and they're just, you say one thing and they freak out. It's like, what the fuck?
You know what? They're malcontents.
Good word.
They're they're thank you. They're malcontents and they're easy to control because they're already angry. They're already pissed off. I was a pissed off teenage kid with a drunk abusive dad. When I was 14, insecure train wreck. I could have been whether it was like the hippie dippies, the church crowd, the skinheads, anyone could have said, "Wow, this kid's a train wreck. Let's just throw him some love and make him one of us." I was easy pickings. Unfortunately, I didn't come across anyone like that.
Thank
I
God you
just
did.
bought a drum set and stayed. Yeah, I just bought a drum set and stayed in my basement. But I was I was reading the tactics that the skinheads use, and I know someone who's in a cult, and she was a recruiter, and she told me how they did it, and it's the exact same thing, whether they're skinheads or cults or the religious groups, it's all the same. You love bomb them, you tell them they're great, and you create a social situation. And she told me, she was like this hot Asian chick. They told her, go to your college library, look for the fat, lonely kids, and especially the guys. They'll be like, "Whoa, what's you talking to me? Hey, free pizza. My friends have it. You don't even pay. Free pizza, come on." And suddenly, this fat kid who never had any friends or anything, she's surrounded by people telling him, "Oh, you should come over more." So it's so easy to pick on those kids and recruit them. And but they all do it, everything, whether it's the skinheads or the cults or the churches or any malcontent. Any malcontent is easy pickings, and you can get them for life sometimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Scientology. Look at all these other groups. Like
Yes.
even with the Communist Party, they would always try to get me, and they hated that I would always say no. They would try to get me to go to these struggle sessions in the city where you'd sleep over for like a couple of days in like their office building and learn about communism and the movement. And I'm like, dude, like I've been reading Lenin since I was 14. Like you learn this shit in the streets and by organizing and doing, the party work in the streets. You don't learn it
Yeah.
sitting in like an apartment building. Like that's weird. And honestly, I don't know who you guys are. And then it came out that there were instances at the Young Communist League, at the Party of Socialism and Liberation, all these other socialist groups, that there were sexual assaults going on at these events.
Always.
So yeah,
Always.
always it's always like what the fuck. One of the parties, I think they went defunct because of the scandal, was the Workers' World Party, and there was a sexual assault scandal in the party, and that fell apart as a result. So, you know, these things are cults, and they started out like really great, but in the 30s and the 40s, and then they just devolved into cults because they realized their ideas weren't popular anymore, and that they were losing membership because of two Red Scares. That did a number on it. And
Yep.
then, with the Nazis, they're just fucked. I mean, they lost a world war and they looked like a bunch of losers because they had the Aryan myth disproved right to their face when the Soviets rolled right into Berlin.
Yep.
I mean, the Soviet Union winning was a slap in the face to, race science, because they're supposed to be the lesser beings and they smacked the dog shit out of the Aryans. I mean, so
Yeah.
there you go.
Great
There's
point.
your race science. It's
Yep. That's
crazy.
a great point.
Thank you. Thank you. I have criticisms of the Soviet Union, but man, I gotta tell you, when they're right, they're fucking right. But it's just
It's
like
funny.
it's such a cult environment, even with like the Republicans too. It is a cult environment. I've seen Republicans say, and I talked about this last night. I've seen the right wing say, um, "Oh, we're for traditional family values," and they're fucking prostitutes. They're doing blow. They're gay in the closet, having sex with men and then hiding it from their wives. Um, they're doing coke. I mentioned that already. Even though we found out that Joe Biden did those things too, his son is doing coke. They're all guilty. They're all politicians. But if you
Yeah.
call out, God forbid you call out one side or the other, they'll either deflect to what the other side is doing, or they'll say you're the enemy of the state.
Yeah. Exactly. I think people like that, they, all right, here's what we're going to tell our people, but here's what we're going to do when the lights are out. Like,
Exactly.
you guys can't do drugs or sleep around, but we can.
It was like during COVID with the dinner parties, or with Jill Biden cooking on a gas stove. I mean, like, what
Yeah.
the fuck? And then you have
Yeah.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say AOC has a gas stove. They came out with all these pictures of these knuckleheads. And remember, gas stoves weren't a problem until someone said they were a problem. Jason Aldean's song has been out for 2 months. It wasn't a problem until someone said, "All right, everyone, we're going to make this a problem." And all the knuckleheads said, "Oh, look at this racist." Oh, look. Like,
Is that the small town song?
yeah. And what makes me insane is imagine how easy it is to control those people. No one gave a crap about the song until they were told to give a crap about the song. And now they're all over Facebook. They're racist. It's about lynching. And it's like, look, and I posted on Facebook. I said, look how easy it is to control you. Why would you do this? Why would you sign up? Oh, yeah, I'll do whatever they say. If I got to put my pronouns in my email, I don't want to be seen as a bigot. I'll do it. It's so easy to control those people. And see, you and I, it's weird because we should hate each other. And we
Yeah.
don't. And we don't. But the thing is, though, I'm not a real conservative in that I don't go to church. I'm dating a bisexual Puerto Rican woman. I'll leave it at that. Like, I don't ascribe to, but they moved they didn't move the goalpost. They moved the whole field. I used to be like on on the left end of the field, but now I'm sort of the center right, and I didn't change. They did that, and now they call me a bad guy because I won't let them control me.
Isn't it amazing how quickly everything changes? Like 10, 15 years ago, everything was fine. And then, after last year of the Obama presidency, shit just hit the fan because everyone was really pissed off with the austerity measures and the global crisis. And then
Yeah,
everything shifted because they lost. Hillary lost. Once Hillary lost, the Democratic establishment went into overdrive to shift the Overton window because they couldn't
yes,
handle it.
exactly. Exactly. And Trump wasn't supposed to win. And that's, you're right. And if this Ukraine thing, I've been digging into this because I was like, I know we got our fingerprints on here. Yep, well, you know it. Zelensky, former comedian, suddenly there's a coup in Ukraine. And the guy the CIA likes, he just won. What? You've got another forever war. Oh, Hillary lost. Fuck, we got to wait 4 years. Dang it.
That's
And
because
now,
Yanukovych in 2013 was originally he was going to go and be a part of the European Union. The whole population wanted to be a part of the EU, and then he swapped at the end because the Russians were like, "Yo, we kind of you're gonna be our guy. We're gonna fuck around a little bit." And then he was like, "All right, we're gonna pull out of the Europe deal." The population had a color revolution, and then the pro-West guy got elected, and then the Civil War happened.
yep. And wouldn't you know, who's funding that civil war? Well, that would be the military-industrial complex of the United States of America.
It's not
It's
Lockheed Martin.
just Martin all over it. You know the ones. We all
Yeah,
know who's making money on this. Vanguard.
I think I lost Kev. You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you. Yeah, I thought I lost you for a
Okay.
second.
Oh,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I was just saying
Vanguard.
State Street. Yeah, yeah, all those knuckleheads. But wouldn't you know? I mean, look at the timeline of presidents who wouldn't play along with the CIA and the military-industrial complex. Let's start with Kennedy. Oh, got him. LBJ. I'm going to ramp up our business in Vietnam. Oh, you can keep your head. Nixon. I know who killed John Kennedy.
And then he gets
War
impeached.
Vietnam. Well, he had to resign. Well, here's the thing: the whole Watergate thing, that was the CIA.
Really?
They did that, yeah, and they busted him in the cover-up because he thought, "Oh, my guys did this." And it's the cover-up that got. I've been reading about this lately. He was a really
Interesting.
popular president, but no one remembers that.
Really? Wow,
He
they
was.
really did
He
change
was.
everything.
Oh yeah,
It's
and
like
then
1984.
oh, 19. Oh yeah, it was like a Reagan. Oh,
Mm.
Reagan, with that Cold War was great for business. And then Reagan ends the Cold War. And what happens? Oh, he gets shot. Well, who's going to take his place? Oh, George Bush Sr., the former director of the CIA. Now, I'm not saying this, and believe me, I'm not suicidal, but there are people saying George Bush Sr. was in on the hit on Reagan.
You know what? That
Roger
makes sense.
Stone, yeah, Roger Stone said that to a radio guy in Philly named Rich Zioli. And I was like, what? That's crazy business. And I was like, holy shit, this makes a lot of sense.
And then you looked it up and you're like, wow, he actually was the director of the CIA. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And this is
So
the
he,
thing. They owned every president up until Obama. They finally had a 40-year period where they were in control, meaning the intelligence agencies, the military, they had the fake elections. And then Trump fucking kicked the shit out of all of them. Now, say what you will
Yeah.
about the man. I have my own criticisms. I was terrified when he was saying all this stuff about leftists and socialists and stuff. I found it kind of scary he celebrated killing protesters because I was one of those guys. I'm like, damn, I don't want to die. But he he was the populist, and we haven't had a populist in power in over 40 years in this country. So we ended up bringing back the populism and destroying the status quo. And
Yep.
love him or hate him, that was essential for moving this country back to democracy. And in hindsight, and especially as a 24, almost 25-year-old man, leaving that college era that I was in, I can reflect on his importance and that in 2024 I will be voting for him if he does win. If he does go up for re-election. When he does rather. And I will not be voting for Ron DeSantis because he is not a populist. He is in the back pocket of the military industrial complex 100%. He was someone that was at
Thank you.
Guantanamo Bay. He is a terrorist. What he is doing in Florida with I support what he's doing with the guns. I hate what he's doing with the culture wars. Because yes, children should be protected. I don't think that they should be exposed to drag shows. I think drag shows are sexual in nature. I've had some people say, "Oh, they're not." It's like, okay, maybe some, but I'm seeing a lot of videos of scantily clad men dancing around children. I don't care if they were really hot strippers and straight women, it's still not good for kids. I don't like Hooters for the same reason. Um,
Right.
but what he's doing is banning books that aren't even supposed to be banned. Like books about FDR, books about Native Americans. Not even like
Wait.
woke Native American shit, but stuff that like we read in school in the 1990s. Now I don't know when you went to high school, but when I was in high school, there were books from the 90s about Native Americans, and it's like, yo, like these are just like old scholastic books. Like what? These aren't woke. This isn't like reframing history. This is just they wore headdresses because it made them feel better and closer to God. This is what the Cherokee believed in. You know, taking away that, eliminating black studies, stories about the Holocaust, that's
Now, is this
fucking
really
insane.
happening?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the only books I could find that he's trying to quote ban are sex books, anything involving sex.
Right. And that
I
I
haven't
agree
found.
with.
Yeah, I haven't found anything historical yet, and I could be missing something. I'll keep
I
looking, but I haven't found anything of a
I
historical
saw
nature.
a couple of videos on TikTok of teachers being like, "Yo, we're being told to get rid of all these books because they don't conform with the new educational standards. Look at all these books. I mean, look, we got stuff about Thomas Edison, stuff about George Washington, stuff about FDR, stuff about the Cherokee, stuff about the Navajo, stuff about Martin Luther King, Ray Lewis, stuff like that from like and they're old books. They're not recent publications. Now, I can understand if they're outdated and they need to be replaced with newer books. But this was stuff that was like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, you can't be doing that." And there were, college classes that are getting, the ire of the governor. And listen, college is different than high school. I don't think it's appropriate for a high schooler to learn about gender theory. I don't think it's appropriate for a high schooler to learn about the nicheness of, slavery and all this stuff. High school, it should be a general education. Not that it should be lies, but it should be a general education. It should be, education geared around questioning and humanitarianism and all these things, as well as learning trades. I think high schooling should be more well-rounded, and you leave the specifics to university and trade schools after graduation. But
You know,
yeah, go
now
ahead, Kev.
I will agree with that, but I will say this. I disagree here. I don't think there is such a thing as gender studies. There is no gender
Yeah,
studies to me. There are men and women. So to
right.
say, well, we're going to have a gender studies, no, that's indoctrination. You're making that person believe that there are 88 genders and a bitch ain't one. But I don't think that that is real.
I
I
don't think
think a
it's
lot
real
of
either, but I think it should be allowed to be studied so long as it's not forced upon. So if you
yes,
allow someone to take the class and say, "All right, well, I don't really agree with this." "Oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, why don't you really agree with that?" And then it's like, "Okay, well, if you'd like to write a paper about why you disagree or agree with it, by all means." And you shouldn't be punished or celebrated for agreeing or disagreeing with it. That I will say. I
you know what?
think, yeah,
I'm okay with that, but at the same time, I think there should be a class on how the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are two of the most wonderful documents ever written. And
Sure.
right now, there's a real push. There's a real push in the colleges. Oh, it's racist and it's elitist because they were rich slave owners who wrote
I
this.
remember
Okay,
that push.
and they
I
were.
sat, yeah, I sat in those
And
classes where they did that.
yeah, and you know what? Hitler was a vegetarian. Okay, so you know, not every, just because they own slaves doesn't mean everything they've ever said should be flushed down the toilet.
Exactly. It's like that's where we were at the time of the country, and there was something. It was surprisingly egalitarian for the economic conditions and social conditions we had. So
Right.
take that as it may, while they may have been slaveholders, that Constitution and that Declaration ultimately ended slavery a little less than 100 years later. So, yes, it
Yeah.
was written by slave owners. Yes, it was written by wealthy people, but that Constitution allowed for unions to be formed, allowed for the end of slavery to happen, allowed for Brown versus Board to happen, allowed for even Roe v. Wade to happen, you know? So I think they're out of their minds for that. I remember those discussions. I disagreed with people on that because I was like, "Yo, like we have so many constitutional protections currently. I think what we should do is add amendments to expand the protections, but we should not get rid of the Constitution because that is dangerous and that can open it up to tyranny."
Of course. And the people pushing it are the ones who want tyranny.
Exactly.
Here's what the people at the top of that food chain are. The other ones, the Lenin referred to as useful idiots,
Mm.
like what someone's green-haired, trans, pansexual, non-binary sibling-in-law who's pushing it. They don't know any better. They don't know tyranny's coming. They don't know they're going to be the first ones put up against the wall.
Right?
They have no idea. Antifa doesn't realize what's going to happen to them if the tyrants win. We know. We've read books. We've read history books.
I've experienced it. That's why I left the communist movement because I was like, dude, I'm gonna get shot if we ever win an election or something revolutionary happens. I will be the first one gone, bro. I will be the first
Yes.
one dead, 100%.
Yep.
Because I would question things and I would want to do things differently. And they didn't. They did not like that at all. I mean, it was actually
No.
scary as fuck. Um, and that's listen, man. I didn't think it was political extremism because I'm not a political extremist. I just think these guys are just weirdos. But then as, life went on, I'm like, yo, this is actually cult-like behavior. This is insane. Um, and people listen, anyone can get lured into it, but it's crazy how something so innocuous can end up becoming a cult.
Yep.
And that's what's being
Exactly.
that like the cult around Ron DeSantis and Trump. I mean, it's like they're great guys, but the followers are almost forming these cults around them. And I'm sorry, but I can't stand. I don't understand the hype around DeSantis. I really don't like. I feel like he would be a tyrannical president. I feel like Trump is the best option because he doesn't give a shit what you are. He's just like, yo, just let's make this country run, bitch. I don't care. You got a dick
Exactly.
and a vagina, bro. Fuck it. All right. I'll call you my bitch one day and my sir the next, bro. I don't care.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
DeSantis will put you in Guantanamo Bay and like force feed you shit. I mean, the
Well,
guy's crazy.
let me ask you this.
Mm.
Remember after the Spanish Civil War, Franco took over?
Yes.
He was a tyrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a right-wing tyrant, though.
Mm-hmm.
And look at everything he did. He was like, oh, I'll fix this. And it's like, okay, this is the opposite side. And he was a fucking monster.
He was, and he's never talked about. He is never talked about. He was a
Never.
monster. He's a absolute monster. And the people of Spain were enslaved from 1939 to 1975. They were fucking enslaved. And under fascism.
Oh yeah, and for those I don't know, who's listening, what they've read, but remember who helped Franco win the war? It was Hitler.
Hitler and Mussolini. We even helped to an extent. I mean, Henry
Yep.
Ford sent over tanks.
Yeah.
American planes were sent over. So it was
Yep.
in small degrees, but sent over because they didn't want the communists to win. And
Right.
then when you look at the communist side of it, there was towards the end of the war, there was the Soviet factions, and then there were the anarchist factions, and then just the typical democratic factions. They all started shooting
Mm-hmm.
at each other. In 1938, late 1937, they all started shooting at each other, and that unity crumbled because the Soviets were trying to
Yep.
push their foreign policy objective, the anarchists were trying to push their domestic objective, and the Democratic side was like, we don't fuck with you guys anymore. This is crazy. You guys are a cult. And then that's how the
Yeah,
fascists
that
took
was.
over.
Yep, and that was kind of a dress rehearsal for World War II, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Hitler even said to, I think, Czechoslovakia, he goes, "You see what my Air Force did to Spanish cities. What's your answer?" He's like, fuck it, you can take us. So it was, if it wasn't a dress rehearsal, it was a warm up match. And yeah, so fascism comes in from any direction.
And it's
People
dangerous.
realize that.
It
Yeah.
doesn't come in the
So
form of
I'm
swastikas.
not always. No, it doesn't come in. It comes in, like you said. DeSantis could be the next Franco. Who knows? And you know what? Even though it would technically be someone on my side politically, I don't want tyranny from either direction. I don't want a tyrannical Republican. That's
Yeah.
not what this is about, this country. And here's the thing, though. There are people on the left, the ones that hate you and I, they do. They want you and I locked up. They want us chopping bricks.
They wanted to shoot people that didn't get the vaccine. They wanted people put
Yeah.
in camps. There was a guy, this assemblyman in particular, I forgot the name, but he was in New York. And from 2017 until the end of the COVID pandemic, this guy has been advocating to put people in camps if they came down with an illness. This iteration was if you came down with COVID-19, suspected of having COVID-19, or had COVID-19, or came in contact with it, you could be indefinitely detained in a medical facility and not
Yes.
released until clearance by a doctor. Indefinitely detained. So that guy, as a response, the bill didn't go anywhere, and the guy was sent to become the ambassador to Jamaica for New York. That's how bad the guy
Ugh.
fucked up.
Well, okay, in New York State, Hochul had, I forget her name, the healthcare commissioner, and she had the power to put you into camp until her doctor decided you got out. You didn't get
Really?
to pick which camp. Yeah. And she lost the court case, and she's
Thank God.
actually trying to fight it now. I'll
Really?
text it to you.
Please, yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to
no
do an
joke.
episode on that.
Yeah,
That's
she's
fucked.
trying to reverse the judge's decision. And here's what, so this comes from a cop who, I won't say, I'm not going to say what town he's from. It's upstate New York. He's talking to a judge. And here's what Hochul and the Klan are doing. They run the New York State legislature. So they'll take a vote. They go, you know what, let's go to dinner. Come back around 11:20 p.m. We'll vote. Oh, it's a new law. We put it through Friday night. And no one pays attention to it. And then people start to get wind of it Monday, Tuesday morning. Well, the law is in effect. Now someone goes, well, wait, I got to take that to court. Okay, do that. It's going to take 4 months. So they've got this law on the books for 4 months. And if the good guys win, it gets tossed. They just say, all right, well, let's do it again. And then the news comes out. This law was in place for 7 whole months until the New York GOP just said, but not, they just make them look like bad guys. Oh, it was 7 months, and then finally, well, that's how long it takes to go through the courts. And so they have their law for 7 months, and then either if they lose it, they just say, well, back in, and they slander the GOP in the papers and go back and try to get it. But she's trying to get so her health commissioner can decide. You know what? Yeah, all right. Anthony and Kevin, you guys, do you have fever? You look like you do. Anyway, well, we're going to send you to camp. You guys are going to camp for the next 3 months, and we'll check up then. And we'll see how you're going. And what they're really going to do is check our Twitter and go, these guys are still causing trouble. You guys look pretty sick. Got to keep you here another 3 months. And she's fighting for the right to do that.
That's fucked up. And the thing is, it's really scary. The courts are like our last station protecting us
Yeah,
before we have to protect ourselves. Like, it's
yeah,
amazing how the Supreme Court, thank God, too, the Supreme Court is actually a very fair court. It seems to be very fair. I mean, like, I'm not happy about Roe v. Wade getting overturned, don't get me wrong, but they're like, listen, it's up to the states. We're out of the abortion business. It should have been up to the states. Ruth Bader Ginsburg even said this was a flimsy ruling, And
yeah.
listen, and this is the thing too about the Democrats, and something I've been telling them to do for a while. They never codified Roe v. Wade into law. They never did. They
Nope.
had the opportunity in the second term of Obama. They had the opportunity in the lead up to that decision in May, April, and March of 2022. They had the decision at the state levels to do it, and they didn't do it. They didn't fucking do it. So that's on them. And now they're over here
Yeah.
blaming the Republicans. And it's like, well, what did you expect them to fucking do? They have a policy objective to achieve, and you failed to do it. So that's on you.
Yep. They had decades.
Decades to do it. They had decades to do it, and they failed. And that's what really drives me fucking crazy about all this shit is people like you said, there'll be followers, but they won't look at what's actually going on. And that's why we're
Yep.
gonna end up getting screwed if that prison thing ever comes about. We're gonna be detained. I mean, that's and I give a lot of credit. I thought it was kind of dumb at first, but now after recent events, I kind of respect their tenacity a bit. So there were so many people that I was going to the gym in the post-COVID era or the beginning of the post-COVID era, and I'm talking to some people. I'm like, "Oh, you're a personal trainer. How long you been doing that?" "Oh, only about a year." And I'm like, "Oh, started during COVID." They're like, "Yeah, we left our jobs." One woman was a nurse, one guy was a firefighter or a cop. They didn't want to get the vaccine. They're like, "Yo, like I don't fuck with this. So I'm gonna stick to my guns, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start my own business and leave my cushy job, and risk my security and everything to start something that makes me feel more comfortable." So,
Yeah.
I mean, I give them a lot of credit for that because, I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's scary, especially in your 40s and 50s. I mean, you've been a cop for
Yeah.
20
Ballsy
years or a
move.
nurse. I'm sorry?
That's a ballsy move.
It's very ballsy. And at the time, I was like, that's fucking stupid. But now I'm like, okay, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Like, you didn't feel comfortable. And, I think in this country, we have a right to feel comfortable. I mean, literally, one of the Supreme Court rulings was, your rights cannot supersede the rights of another individual. That's based on
Yes.
comfort. I mean, we all deserve to feel comfortable and free, however, we decide to make that happen. And that COVID mandate, in retrospect, really wasn't living up to that.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering now if, if we had if we didn't have a COVID mandate, would it would more people get the vaccine? That's what I'm really wondering.
I don't know because anytime you politicize something, then there's trouble. Remember when the vaccines came out, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Andrew Cuomo, like, I'm not getting the Trump vaccine. There's no way. And then Biden gets in
Mhm.
office, like, everyone get the vaccine. Well,
I
you're
remember
just
that.
against it. Yeah. So that alone made me go, okay, something funky going on here in Funky Town.
In Funky Town. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. Like that was insane. I remember that. Do you remember when they went door to door in Rhode Island to kick out New Yorkers and Cuomo was like, "Yo, we're gonna like really fuck you up if you keep doing that. I just hope you know that, right?" So
Wow, I don't remember that.
yeah, nah, he's like, "Yo, no one fucks with New York like that. We're gonna fuck with you if you start doing that. We will prevent people from traveling. We will prevent trade with you. We will block all," like he was going like he's like basically almost declaring war on Rhode Island. And
Hmm.
then they were just like, "Yo, like, all right, we're not gonna go door to door and deport New Yorkers," because that's what they were doing. If you were staying in Rhode Island and you were from New York, you were to immediately you were getting deported. You had to immediately go back to New York.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, we thought we were insane, and they're over here like deporting fucking people like they're an independent country. I mean, like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? I mean, that was scary times, man. A lot of people lost their shit. Like, we really thought that was the end of the world.
Yeah. And it wasn't. It wasn't even close.
No, no, it wasn't. And now there's shit going around saying that there's a super coronavirus that has a 1 in 4 chance of killing you. And I'm like, dude, just
Oh yeah.
give it a rest already, bro. Like, no one cares. Like, at this point, half the country's just like, yo, let it happen. Like, just fuck it. I don't care anymore. Like, that we're already reeling from the effects of social isolation. Like, there's so many people that are just socially awkward now. They don't know how to socialize or be with other people. And
Yeah. Especially
actually,
kids.
yeah, oh my God, yeah, especially the kids. I mean, talk about loneliness now. I was doing a study on male loneliness in my generation. And, back in the 1990s, 36% of men my age had 10 or more friends. Now it's like less than 15% have 10 or more friends. So people are more and more antisocial, and they rely more on their parents for guidance rather than their own friends. So God forbid, we look 10, 20, 30 years down the line, the effects of COVID-19 on families, relationships, and community building. I mean, it's going to be devastating. We're going to see a lot more
Yep.
sociopaths too.
Yes. And let me throw this in, and then I got to run, unfortunately.
Uh,
There's a book that came out about the adverse effects of forced diversity.
really?
And I wrote about. I'll send it to you. It's something, I forget what it's called, Bowling Alone or something. When you force diversity on people, they stop hanging out. And what happens when they stop hanging out? Well, they don't talk, they don't share ideas, they keep to themselves, they stay home, they get out of shape, they watch TV, they watch your news. But it's how forced diversity is actually bad for people, and that has been happening at the same time, even before COVID. So now you add that into it, this forced diversity thing, and people go, because it doesn't mean people are racist or anything. It just means people are comfortable, whether it's based on race or money, or look at high school. High school is a perfect example. The dorks hang out with the dorks, the jocks with the jocks, the burnouts with the burnouts, the band kids with the band kids. Like, people hang out with people they are comfortable with.
Hmm.
And when you force something, look at the forced busing in Detroit. All right, this kid from the white neighborhood going to school in the black neighborhood, and vice versa. And what do you know? Race riots. Who saw that coming? Well, everybody, including the mayor who pushed it. Everybody. So I think
Wow.
this might have been like going on for a while now. We're like, I know, let's just fuck with people based on diversity or lack thereof, and make them fight, make them uncomfortable, because it really makes no sense to me why you would. And all the parents, black and white, said no, this is a horrible idea, and kids were getting beaten up, and I mean, I lived through it. I remember, like, in 70, I'm going to say 74, 75, 76. My mom called it riot season in Detroit. It was in the springtime.
Really?
Play inside, it's riot season.
And
And
this
it
was
was
10
right
years
after.
after desegregation, right? Or 20 years after desegregation?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember when that was.
Because so
Um,
basically it was like the kids were basically in, like, the neighborhoods were predominantly black and predominantly white, and then they just swapped it where it's like, okay, all the kids from the predominantly black neighborhoods go to the white neighborhoods.
yes, it was called busing,
Wow.
school busing. Get on the bus
Wow.
and go into the neighborhood where they don't want you, black or white, where there's going to be trouble. And then, oh, this will make them get along.
Yeah, you got to slowly ease into that. You just, if it's like, yo, if you want to come to these schools, great. If you don't want to come to these schools, great. And then the people that want to be there are going to want to learn and be around other people that are different than them. You can't force
Exactly.
it. You can't force it. You got
No,
to go very slow, and then naturally over time, we'll get to where we are today, where it's like, yeah, my friend over there is from India, my friend here is an African American, my friend over there is gay, and we're all drinking together. And I've had situations like that. I've had that's my friend groups. It's like my friend groups are pretty diverse. And or at least it used to be in college. Nowadays it's mostly white, but you know, it is what it is. You can't force it. It's just if you're gonna be friends with the
yes.
black dude, you're friends with the black dude because you like him and he's funny, not because he's black. Like, you can't force that shit.
Yeah. And you know what? I think part of the problem is they always want us fighting.
Yes. Well, that's how they keep us from unionizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Kev, listen.
Exactly.
Listen, thank you for coming on the show. Why don't you plug some of your
Thanks
stuff
for
where
having me,
people could
buddy.
follow you and listen to you and read you?
Oh, yeah. linewsradio.com, Monday through Friday, 10 to 11 a.m. pjmedia.com. Click on columnist, Kevin Downey Jr. And I'm on all the socials. Just look for Kevin Downey Jr. That's me.
Awesome. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you again soon. I'll send you that stuff.
Yes, sir. And I'll send you this episode. And to our
All right.
listeners, thank you for listening to episode 249. It was a pleasure having you all listening. And remember, Wednesday night, 6 p.m., I will be live.